Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Ukraine's dire warning to NATO and why time is running out for the alliance to make critical decisions. This is one of the most urgent messages coming from Kiev since the start of the war, and it carries serious implications for the entire security of Europe. Ukraine is sounding the alarm because what happens in the next few months could decide the future of the conflict and even the future of NATO itself. Ukraine has been on the front lines of a brutal war for more than 2 years, and the pressure is mounting. Russian forces continue to launch heavy attacks, testing Ukraine's defenses and pushing toward key cities. Kiev is telling NATO that it cannot hold out forever without increased military support, more advanced weapons, and faster decision-making from Western capitals. This is not just about Ukraine's survival, but about preventing the war from spilling into NATO territory. The Ukrainian leadership has warned that Russian forces are adapting and learning from their mistakes. Moscow is producing weapons at a faster pace, using drones, missiles, and artillery to keep constant pressure on Ukrainian troops. The battlefield situation is becoming more dangerous as Ukraine struggles with shortages of ammunition and manpower. If these shortages continue, Russia could gain the upper hand, leading to a dangerous escalation. Ukraine's message to NATO is very clear: time is running out. Delays in military aid are already having consequences on the ground. When promised weapons do not arrive on schedule, Ukrainian forces cannot plan effective operations. Kiev is urging NATO to cut through bureaucratic delays and deliver support faster, arguing that every day lost means more casualties and more territory at risk. The call for action also includes air defense systems, long-range missiles, and advanced fighter jets. Ukraine has repeatedly asked for these capabilities to protect its cities from missile strikes and to take the fight deeper into Russian-occupied territory. Without these tools, Ukraine remains vulnerable to relentless bombardment that destroys infrastructure, cripples energy supplies, and terrorizes civilians. This is not just a plea for survival. Ukraine is framing this as a defense of Europe as a whole. If Ukraine falls or is forced to accept a bad peace deal, it could embolden Russia to challenge NATO's borders next. Countries like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have been warning for years that Moscow's ambitions go beyond Ukraine. NATO cannot afford to ignore this warning. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been personally appealing to Western leaders, emphasizing that hesitation only benefits Russia. He has made it clear that Ukraine is willing to fight, but it cannot do so effectively without proper support. His speeches have become increasingly urgent, reflecting the gravity of the situation and the sense that time is slipping away. In addition to military aid, Ukraine is asking for stronger political commitments. Kiev wants NATO to offer a clearer path to membership, or at least a firm security guarantee that Russia will not be allowed to dictate Ukraine's future. This is a highly sensitive issue within the alliance, as some members worry about being dragged into a direct war with Russia. But Ukraine argues that clarity is needed to deter further aggression. The economic situation is also a major concern. The war has devastated Ukraine's economy, destroyed critical infrastructure, and forced millions of people to flee their homes. Rebuilding the country while fighting a war is nearly impossible without outside help. Ukraine's government is asking NATO countries and the European Union to step up financial support to keep the economy functioning and pay for essential services. At the same time, Ukraine is also warning about war fatigue in the West. Public support for aid packages is starting to weaken in some countries, and political debates are delaying key decisions. Ukraine fears that if NATO and its partners lose focus, Russia will exploit the situation and press for a military victory. This is why Kiev continues to remind the world that the stakes are incredibly high. There is also the question of Russia's next moves. Some analysts believe Moscow is preparing for a long war, using its larger population and industrial base to outlast Ukraine and its allies. If this strategy works, it could set a dangerous precedent, showing that aggression pays off if you are patient enough. That would be a major blow to NATO's credibility. Ukraine's warning is not just about what happens on the battlefield, but about the future of the international order. If the world allows a powerful country to invade and occupy its neighbor without consequences, it could inspire other aggressors elsewhere. This is why many Ukrainian officials say that this war is about far more than their own country. It is about defending the rules that have kept relative peace in Europe since World War II. The next few months are likely to be critical. Winter is approaching, which has historically been a difficult period for both sides. Ukraine fears that Russia will once again target its power grid to plunge the country into darkness and cold. This makes air defense systems even more urgent, as protecting energy infrastructure becomes a top priority. In the meantime, NATO is under pressure to act decisively. The alliance has already committed billions in aid, but Kiev insists that more is needed and that it must arrive faster. The political will to sustain this level of support will be tested, especially as other global crises compete for attention. For NATO, this is a moment of truth. If the alliance wants to maintain its reputation as a credible security guarantor, it must respond to Ukraine's warnings before it is too late. A failure to act could weaken NATO's deterrence and invite further aggression from Russia or even other adversaries watching closely. The outcome of this war will shape Europe's future for decades. A strong and independent Ukraine would be a bulwark against Russian expansionism and a proof that collective security still works. But a weakened or defeated Ukraine would leave the entire region more vulnerable and could lead to even greater instability. Kiev's message is urgent, emotional, and strategic. It is asking NATO not just for weapons, but for resolve. The war is a test of Western unity, and Ukraine is reminding its partners that hesitation can be deadly. Time is running out, and decisions made now will determine whether Ukraine stands or falls. As we watch this situation unfold, one thing is clear: this is not just Ukraine's fight. It is a struggle for the future of Europe and for the principles that keep nations safe from aggression. NATO has the power to make a difference, but only if it acts decisively and without delay. The world is watching, and history will judge how the alliance responds to this moment. Ukraine has done everything it can to sound the alarm. The question now is whether NATO will answer before it is too late.